The text message glowed on my phone, slicing through the quiet of my kitchen at 6:47 a.m. Allison, we need to talk. I sold the boutique. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the tile floor, the bitter scent of espresso mixing with the sudden nausea clawing at my throat. My husband, Greg, hadn't just sold my business, the one I'd built from a single sewing machine in our garage into a thriving fashion boutique in downtown Seattle. He'd done it without a word, without my signature, without a shred of respect for the decade I'd poured into it. And the reason, buried in the next line of his message, burned even deeper: I needed the money for something important. Important. That word echoed as I stood frozen, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in a house that suddenly felt like a stranger's. I'm Allison, 38 years old, and this is the story of how my husband's betrayal didn't break me, it forged me. Before I dive into my story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever faced betrayal and fought back. Your support fuels these tales of resilience. 10 years ago, life felt like a watercolor painting, soft edges, vibrant hues, every stroke deliberate. Greg and I met in college, two dreamers in a cramped lecture hall at the University of Washington. He was studying business, all sharp suits and sharper ambition. I was an art major, sketching dress designs in the margins of my notebooks. We married at 25, promising to build a life together. I worked as a retail manager while he climbed the corporate ladder at a tech startup, but my heart was always in fashion. At night, I'd sit at our wobbly kitchen table, stitching prototypes under the glow of a second-hand lamp, dreaming of my own boutique. By 30, I took the leap. With our savings and a small loan, I opened Allison's Atelier, a cozy shop on Pike Street. It wasn't just a store, it was my soul in physical form. Shelves lined with hand-stitched dresses, racks of silk blouses dyed in colors inspired by Pacific Northwest sunsets, and a fitting room where customers became friends. The chime of the shop's bell became my morning anthem. Greg was supportive, or so I thought, helping with permits, crunching numbers, even bringing me coffee during late-night inventory counts. "You're unstoppable, Allie," he'd say, kissing my forehead. I believed him. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Weekends meant hiking in the Cascades, our golden retriever, Milo, bounding ahead. Evenings were for takeout on the couch, laughing over bad reality TV. We'd saved for a house in Capitol Hill, a fixer-upper with creaky floors and a backyard just big enough for Milo to chase squirrels. I thought we were building something unbreakable. My boutique grew, earning features in local magazines, drawing customers from Portland and Vancouver. I hired 2 employees, expanded to online sales, and started planning a second location. Greg's career thrived too. He was promoted to VP, his bonuses funding our dream of a European vacation. We were a team, or so I told myself, ignoring the cracks forming beneath the surface. Milo's collar jangled as he nudged my hand, pulling me back to the present. The broken mug lay in shards, coffee pooling like spilled ink. I reread Greg's text, my pulse hammering. Sold the boutique. For something important. The words didn't compute. The shop was in my name, my LLC, my blood and sweat. How could he sell it? Why would he? I called him, my fingers trembling. Straight to voicemail. "Greg, what the hell is going on? Call me back." I paced the kitchen, the hardwood cold under my bare feet, Milo trailing me with worried eyes. No response. I tried his office, his assistant stammering that he was unavailable. Unavailable. My husband, my partner, was a ghost. The first signs had been there, hadn't they? I'd just been too busy to see them. 6 months ago, Greg started working late, his phone buzzing at odd hours. "Client dinners," he'd say, waving off my questions. He'd come home smelling of unfamiliar perfume, claiming it was a colleague's overpowering scent. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He'd always been the steady one, the one who balanced my creative chaos with his spreadsheets and logic. But there were other clues, a receipt for a hotel I didn't recognize, tucked in his jacket pocket. A new password on his laptop, when he'd always left it open. The way he'd flinch when I reached for his phone to check the time. I'd been distracted too. A spring collection launch, a website redesign, training a new assistant, my days were a blur of fabric swatches and customer emails. Greg's distance felt like a phase, a side effect of our demanding lives. I'd even blamed myself, scheduling date nights he canceled, buying lingerie he barely noticed. "We're just in a rut," I told my best friend, Sarah, over wine at her apartment. She'd raised an eyebrow, her lawyer's instincts kicking in. "Allie, keep an eye on him. Men don't just drift like that." I laughed it off, pouring another glass. Sarah didn't know Greg like I did. But 2 weeks ago, something shifted. I found a bank statement in our home office, buried under a stack of junk mail. A withdrawal of $50,000 from our joint savings, no explanation. When I asked Greg, he shrugged, saying it was for investments. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. I pressed, but he snapped, "Can't you trust me for once?" The venom in his voice stunned me silent. That night, he slept on the couch, and I lay awake, the hum of the city outside our window no longer comforting. Something was wrong, but I couldn't name it. Then, last week, I overheard him on the phone in the garage, his voice low and urgent. "I'll have the rest soon, I promise. Just wait for me." My stomach twisted, but when I opened the door, he hung up, claiming it was a work call. His smile was too quick, too polished. I wanted to believe him, but the boutique's books weren't adding up either. Payments to suppliers were delayed, invoices unmarked. I'd assumed it was my new assistant's error, but now, staring at Greg's text, I wondered if it was something worse. I drove to the boutique, the Seattle drizzle blurring my windshield. The shop sign, Allison's Atelier in elegant script, felt like a mockery. Inside, the air smelled of lavender and fresh cotton, the rack still full, the register quiet. My assistant, Mia, looked up, startled. "Allie, what's wrong? You're pale." I couldn't speak, just handed her my phone. Her eyes widened as she read the message. "He can't do that, can he? It's your business." I didn't know. I called our lawyer, David, my voice shaking. "Allison, I'll need to see the documents. If Greg forged anything, we'll fight this." Forged. The word hung heavy, a blade waiting to fall. The next hours were a fog of rage and disbelief. Greg wouldn't answer my calls, his office claiming he was out of town. I sat at the boutique's counter, the chime of the bell mocking me each time a customer entered. My shop, my sanctuary, sold out from under me. For what? Something important. I thought of the hotel receipt, the perfume, the phone call in the garage. A sickening realization bloomed: Greg wasn't just hiding money. He was hiding someone. Sarah arrived, her lawyer's briefcase in hand. "Allie, we need to move fast. Check your accounts, your contracts, everything." We spent hours in the boutique's back office, Milo curled at my feet, as I logged into bank accounts, LLC filings, anything that might explain what Greg had done. The joint account was nearly empty, drained in small, deliberate transfers over months. The boutique's business account showed a single transaction, $450,000 wired to an unfamiliar LLC 2 days ago. My heart stopped. That was the shop's valuation, the price I'd been quoted when considering expansion. Greg had sold it, all right, to someone I didn't know, for a purpose I couldn't fathom. David called back, his voice grim. "Allison, I found a sale agreement filed with the state. Your signature's on it, but it's not your handwriting. Greg used a power of attorney from years ago, when you were in the hospital for surgery. It's shaky, but he exploited it." I remembered that time, appendicitis, Greg holding my hand in the recovery room, promising to handle everything. Now, that promise was a weapon. "What's the LLC?" I asked. David hesitated. "It's registered to a Vanessa Carter. I'm digging into her, but it doesn't look good." Vanessa Carter. The name meant nothing, yet it felt like a punch. Sarah's fingers flew across her laptop, pulling up social media. Within minutes, we had her, a marketing consultant, 29, all glossy hair and designer bags, posing in photos at a Cancun resort Greg had claimed was a work trip. Her latest post, timestamped yesterday, showed a diamond bracelet, captioned, "Spoiled." My vision blurred, the room spinning. Greg hadn't just sold my business. He'd sold it to fund his affair. I wanted to scream, to drive to his office and shatter every glass door. But something colder took root, a clarity born of betrayal. Greg thought I was weak, a dreamer too soft to fight back. He was wrong. I looked at Sarah, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "I'm not losing my shop. And he's not getting away with this." She nodded, her eyes fierce. "Then let's burn him to the ground, legally." The pain was a living thing, coiling in my chest, but I didn't have time to feel it. Every second Greg was out there, spending my money, laughing with her, was a second I couldn't waste. I called an emergency meeting with David and Sarah at her law firm, the Seattle skyline gray beyond the conference room windows. David laid out the reality: the forged sale was fraud, but unraveling it would take months, maybe years. The boutique's assets were already transferring to Vanessa's LLC, and Greg had covered his tracks well, using offshore accounts to hide the money. "We can sue," David said, "but you need evidence, and you need it now." Evidence. I thought of Greg's laptop, his phone, the locked drawer in his home office. He'd always been meticulous, but no one's perfect. I drove home, Milo's head resting on my lap, the radio silent. Our house, once a haven, felt like a crime scene. I tore through Greg's office, finding nothing but old receipts and golf magazines. His laptop was gone, likely with him. But in the drawer, under a stack of warranties, I found a burner phone, cheap and black, its screen lighting up with a single contact. My hands shook as I scrolled through texts, dates, hotel names, promises of a new life. One message, sent 3 days ago, read, "The sale's done. We're set." I forwarded everything to Sarah, my heart pounding. Sarah's voice crackled through my phone. "This is gold, Allie. It's not enough to reverse the sale yet, but it's proof of intent. Keep digging." I didn't sleep that night, combing through our life for more. I found a hidden email account on our shared iPad, logged in with a password Greg hadn't changed since college. The emails were a roadmap of his betrayal: contracts with Vanessa's LLC, wire transfers to a Cayman Islands account, even a lease for a penthouse in Miami. He wasn't just leaving me, he was planning a new life, funded by my dreams. Sarah hired a private investigator, who traced Vanessa's LLC to a shell company Greg had set up years ago, back when he claimed he was consulting on the side. The PI found photos of them together, not just in Cancun but at events I'd thought were work-related. Every smile, every touch, was a knife. Yet with each discovery, my anger sharpened into resolve. Greg had underestimated me, assuming I'd collapse in tears. Instead, I was building a case, brick by brick. The turning point came a week later. David called, his voice urgent. "Allison, we found a loophole. The boutique's lease is still in your name, not the LLC's. If we can prove fraud before the asset transfer finalizes, you can reclaim the property." The lease, my name on a dotted line from 5 years ago, when I negotiated with the landlord myself. Greg hadn't thought to check it, too busy planning his escape. I felt a spark of hope, fragile but real. "What do I do?" I asked. David's answer was simple: take back what's yours. My plan wasn't revenge, not yet. It was survival. I met with the boutique's landlord, a gruff retiree named Mr. Callahan, who'd always liked me. Over coffee at a diner, I showed him the forged sale documents, the burner phone texts, the emails. His face hardened. Your husband's a piece of work, Allison. The lease is yours. I'll lock out anyone who tries to claim it. With his signature on a new agreement, I secured the shop's physical space. It wasn't the inventory or the brand, but it was a start. Next, I needed allies. I called Mia and my other employee, Jenna, explaining everything. They were furious, offering to testify about Greg's visits to the shop, his meetings with suppliers that never happened. I reached out to my customers, sending a heartfelt email about a temporary closure and hinting at a comeback. The responses flooded in: support, outrage, promises to shop again. My community, the one I'd built, was still mine. Sarah's PI uncovered more. Vanessa wasn't just Greg's mistress, she was his accomplice, funneling boutique funds into her own accounts. But she wasn't as careful as Greg. Her social media flaunted purchases tied to the sale money: a car, a designer wardrobe, that diamond bracelet. Sarah grinned as she showed me the screenshots. She's sloppy. We can use this. We filed an emergency injunction, freezing the LLC's assets pending a fraud investigation. The court date was set for 3 weeks away, but I wasn't waiting. I confronted Greg at his office, unannounced. The receptionist tried to stop me, but I strode past, heels clicking on the marble floor. Greg's face paled when he saw me, his tie loose, a coffee stain on his shirt. Allison, what are you? I cut him off, tossing a folder of evidence on his desk: texts, emails, bank records. You sold my business to fund your affair. Did you think I wouldn't fight back? His arrogance flickered, replaced by panic. It's not what you think. Vanessa's just a friend, and the sale was to save us, I laughed, sharp and cold. Save it for court, Greg. You're done. I walked out, his protests fading behind me, my heart racing but my head clear. The weeks that followed were a chess game, each move deliberate. Sarah and David built the case, subpoenaing bank records, deposing suppliers who dealt with Greg's fake invoices. I worked from the boutique, now a skeleton of its former self, restocking with what inventory remained. Mia and Jenna helped, their loyalty a lifeline. Customers returned, some bringing friends, their purchases small but symbolic. The shop's bell chimed again, a quiet promise of revival. Greg fought back, hiring a lawyer who claimed the sale was mutually agreed. But his lies unraveled. The PI found a recorded call, Vanessa bragging to a friend about Greg's money and their Miami plans. In court, the judge's eyes narrowed as Sarah presented the evidence: the forged signature, the burner phone, Vanessa's flaunted wealth. Greg's lawyer stammered, his defense collapsing. The judge ruled in my favor, voiding the sale and ordering the LLC's assets returned to me. Vanessa's accounts were frozen, her penthouse lease cancelled. Greg faced fraud charges, his career in ruins. But victory wasn't sweet, not yet. The boutique was mine again, but the shelves were half empty, the brand's reputation bruised. I sat in the shop late one night, Milo asleep by the counter, the city's lights soft through the window. The betrayal still stung, not just Greg's affair but his belief that I was disposable. I'd loved him, built a life with him, and he'd burned it for someone who saw him as a paycheck. The pain was raw, but beneath it was something new: strength. I rebuilt, piece by piece. I launched a new collection, inspired by the ordeal: bold designs, sharp lines, fabrics that felt like armor. The boutique's reopening drew crowds, local media covering the comeback story. I paid off debts, hired a new manager, and started planning that second location again. Sarah became my business partner, her legal mind balancing my creative one. Milo still greeted customers, his tail wagging like a metronome. Greg tried to reach out, his texts pleading for forgiveness. I didn't respond. He'd moved to a cramped apartment, his bonuses gone, his reputation toxic. Vanessa faced her own fallout, her social media silent, her consulting business defunct. I didn't gloat, I didn't need to. Their consequences were their own, a mirror of their choices. The woman I am now isn't the one who stood in that kitchen, coffee mug shattered at her feet. I'm still Allison, but stronger, sharper, unafraid. The boutique is thriving, its shelves full, its bell chiming with purpose. I've learned that betrayal doesn't define you, it reveals you. I took back my business, my dreams, and more, my belief in myself. This shop, these dresses, this life, they're mine, built from resilience, stitched with courage. Standing in my boutique, the scent of fresh fabric in the air, I think of the woman I was, the one who trusted too easily, who loved too blindly. She's still part of me, but she's not in charge anymore. I've claimed my space, my worth, my future. And if someone tries to take it again? They'll find a woman who knows how to fight, and win. What would you do if someone tried to steal your dreams? How would you rise? If this journey from betrayal to empowerment moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of unbreakable spirits. Share in the comments, have you ever had to rise above someone's cruelty? Your story could inspire others.